to continue our Lego characters, and we've already practiced on the face and the facial expressions and the hair. Now we're going to work on the body. And the first thing we're going to do with the body is we're going to practice the upper torso, okay, the torso and the arms, right? So I'm going to try and focus over here because I want to spend a little time with the hand here. Over here, I want to do the legs. Right, so on this side I want to do the legs and maybe even a smaller version of a full body. We'll see. Maybe we'll turn it over and do a full body. We'll see how this works. So first thing I want to do is upper torso. It's in the shape of a trapezoid. So there's three places we have to, well, there's really four places we need to pay attention. First of all, the top portion where the shoulders are, that's important. So shoulders, and the body itself, the torso, is smaller at the top and wider at the bottom, which makes it a trapezoid. It's not just a rectangle, so we can't just make a straight down rectangle. It's rounded, and then the shoulders will attach beneath the top of the trapezoid. So let's start the trapezoid first, and we can start it, and don't make it like a dress. So we don't want to make it out too far and make it look like we're drawing a dress for the upper body. Right at the bottom, there's a slight drop to straight. Slight drop to straight. Okay, right there. So now we'll round the shoulders out, or kind of where the shoulders will be. I guess these would be the shoulders. When the arms get attached, the arms aren't really the shoulders because they're just below that. But these stay, this kind of drops straight down right here. The arms get attached just beneath this. Plus, let's look at the head, the neck. This is where the neck would be, roughly, maybe even right there. Because the head does not go out past the shoulders. It is inside or really close to being equal width, but it's inside. And then that neck's got to be a decent width as well. So we'll look at that later. All right, so the arms, they kind of jump out, go straight out a little bit, and then they start to drop. And then there's the elbow. And this is where they start cutting back in, but not too far. I get a lot of kids that like cut all the way back in and make these little tiny baby wrists. Don't cut all the way back in. Then we're going to stop just before the bottom of the body. So there's the body. We're up a little bit because we've got to work in this rounded wrist part. Okay, because this is where the arm, the hand gets attached. So I'm only going to do that much because the wrist would be right there, and I don't want to focus on the wrist right now. The tough part is getting this the same on both sides. That's why we draw lightly, and when we sketch, we have a better chance at fixing our errors before we end up committing. Not too bad. I think we're okay right there. If this is difficult for you, please take more time. Don't give up. Just take more time. Your wrist stops above the bottom of your torso. Okay? The arms go straight out a little bit and then drop down. Elbow is kind of a point, and then they come in, but they don't come in all the way over. They need to still be kind of pointing out a little bit. Okay, and there is no gap between the arms. That's the big one. This is something I'm going to show you. I'm going to try and do a very small version of it down here. What I don't want to see is that kids will do this. They have their bodies, and then they do this. There's no gap here. If you know what a Lego character looks like, and I'm going to grab one for you. So here's a Lego character right here. So forget the hat. So there's a bald one, right? There are no real gaps between the arms and the body. Okay? So there should be no gap here. Right? You guys see that? There should be no gap. There's no gap right here. This is coming straight down. Okay? straight down. And then there's no real gap there. Okay, so don't draw a gap in here. I'm going to leave this guy for a reference just in case I need him. All right, so I want you to practice this. If you can't get this down in one shot, I want you to do it again. Okay, what I'm going to spend time doing in the rest of this section here is I'm going to practice the hands. And what I want you to do is we'll put hands on here once we draw this big. But I want you to draw it big first. So I'm going to draw the sleeve, bottom part of the sleeve, and then that's cutting over. And then where the wrist goes into the body, into the sleeve, we've got this happening. Okay, and the wrist isn't real long. Wrist is actually pretty short. And then the whole hand is a circle. So how I teach my students to draw a circle is in quarters. So you start over here, you go quarter, 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 and quarter. Okay, and I'm really close to the bottom of my paper here, so I'm going to end up running off. Then we're going to turn this into a donut. We're going to do another circle on the inside, and this is where it comes in handy to draw light. Right now we got a closed hand and we need to open this up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this straight down from here, take this straight down from here, and then we're going to erase the middle of this right there. Okay, we're not done yet. Now what I want you to do is put another line in the middle, and this is what makes it dimensional. So now we've got a dimensional hand. Okay, keeping this round and not straight. If you make this straight, I don't know what's happening. We're losing the depth. We're losing the dimension part of this. Okay, so make sure that this stays round. This is round. This is a circle, this is another circle, so on and so forth. Once you have this, again, I don't really want you making outlines around anything because we're going to be coloring this like it's real and there's no outlines. I erase that part of the circle too. Now it looks better. Okay, so now we've got our hand, right? So that's our sleeve, done. And actually our sleeve right here, this would be coming up. Our body would be coming down right here, and this is roughly right where that body gets attached, right? Okay, so that's how that looks. This is probably pointing a little too far out for it to be in this direction. I think this probably would be about right here. I've got his hand tilted weird. So let's put hands on our torso we got here already. Let's see if I can draw that small. Because when you do this, you're going to be drawing about this big anyways on the back side of your paper, pretty close to this. Maybe not that big, but I'm going to put in the rounded portion right there. Come down with a little bit of a wrist. And your hands are actually pretty big. So if you look back at the image, your hands are really big. I'm not going to make a full circle because I know how to do this. Okay. It's not bad. I'm going to put in the belt line and then the pants. That'd be close, but I think it would need to be a little bit bigger than that. This is why it helps to have a good point on your pencil, or a really good eraser, because now I've got lines in here I can't get rid of without erasing everything else, and I'm not happy with that. So that's why we practice. We do rough drafts before we do anything else. Okay. All right. Now let's practice the lower half, of the body, so we can see this proportion. So that's the hand, that's the arms, the upper torso. Don't do this no flaring out arms. Let's move over to our upper torso or lower portion of the body. All right, so we've got a rectangle. Let's start here. We're going to make a rectangle about that big. Okay. Now we've got to look at the proportion of how this is going to work out. This might end up having to get stretched or shrunk, so pay attention to this. The first thing we need is a square with a gap in between, but not too big of a gap, as we don't want the body to look weird. Okay, so that's not really quite a square. I need to bring that over in a little bit, bring this over in a little bit. Now we've got the right size gap, and we've got squares. The biggest thing to make sure is we have squares here. This actually might have to come over just a smidge. There. And again, I'm not going to erase all this right now. I'm not worried about it. We're sketching. Okay. Right here, this has to come down. They point towards each other a little bit, and then we cap it off. That's the hinge. Okay. That's the hinge portion of the body. There's the belt line. There's this. And if you notice, this is actually rounded because this is where the hinge is. That's what makes these legs go up and down. So we've got the hinge area here, and then we've got two more big squares, but there's a cut in because of the way that it's shaped. So these are just bigger squares with a little cut off the corner. So these will actually, this middle line will be a little thinner. So this is thicker than this line here, but make sure we still have squares. And then we have rectangle feet. Little boxy rectangle feet. That looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that in the first try. If you did not get it on your first try, try it again. That's why we have space, depending on how big you're drawing. But I'm happy with the way this looks. There are things that I would erase, like erasing these lines in here, erasing this here. But this goes all the way top to bottom. So I want you to pay attention to this. This line goes all the way top to bottom, but I don't want you drawing that line first. I want you to do rectangle, square, gap, square. Okay, make sure that it's not too big of a gap. And then we draw those two little lines right here going in, cap that off. Bigger square, still straight down. And then we got two rectangles on the bottom for our feet, still connected straight down. Okay, but don't draw these straight lines because you don't know if you're going to have to adjust this one way or the other. So one shape at a time. All right. So now we've got the upper torso, the lower body. We've got the hands. I think what's left to do is just do a rough draft and do the whole body and get it in proportion. Okay. I think if you want to save paper, actually I'll save paper. If you want to save paper, then make sure that you just flip the paper over. I'm going to have to back this up a little bit, zoom out so that way you can see the full thing. So this will be pretty big, and you're going to need to keep it sketchy. Very light drawing. You're going to see mine dark, but it's just so you can see it. But you want to keep it nice and sketchy so that way we can erase if we need to. Okay, don't get caught up in making it perfect right away. That's why we sketch. Sketching does not require erasing every single time you think you made a mistake. Okay, so let's push ourselves to try not to erase right away. So we're going to start with the head, and if you have a lot of hair or hair in general, you're going to want to make sure you start below the top. We don't want to just put the bottom jawline right here and then not leave enough room for your head or for your hair. My students need to fill as much of this paper as they can while paying attention to the proportions. Okay, I don't have any hair, but I still have to get the top of my head in. What I want to try and do is put in my jawline about here. I think it's about where I want this. I might have gone a little too low. but I've got a square. So your head is a square too. So I would want you to start a little lower. If I were to measure this, see how far down it went. I started about 1 3/4 inch down from the top. It's probably, I probably should have at least gone to 2 inches, but I didn't have a ruler and I was just guessing, okay? Lucky for me, I don't have any hair, so I don't have to worry about it. But for you, I'd probably push it to about 2 inches. So if you had a ruler, and my head that I made is, I don't know, it's pretty close. It's just over 1 3/4. And to know if it's a square, see, I'm a little off. So I need to actually come down a little bit because I've got more of a rectangle. Or I could shave off from the sides. And I think what I will do based on the space that I have, I'm going to come down a little bit. We're just going to add a little bit more, and then I'll erase this. All right, so that's close enough for a square. Remember my neck, I'm not gonna worry about my face just yet. I'm gonna get my neck. Actually, I will put my little part, my little thing on top that clips hair in that I'll never have. Put my neck in, and then if we look at the image, of a character, this is really kind of rounded. Let's make sure we get that nice and rounded. Okay. I don't like how tall their thing on top is. I don't think theirs is that tall. But anyways, shoulders should extend just barely past the head, okay? And then we start our drop down, our descent. And we got to look at how tall this is. So from here to the bottom should be roughly the same size as the lower part of the legs as well. So if you have an ability to measure on your computer screen and see how tall this is from here and then from here down to the bottom of the feet, it's pretty close to the same distance. What I'm not liking right now is how long this is. I think this is too long. Or it's not boxy enough. Maybe I'll find out in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and temporarily cut this to there. I'm gonna put in an arm. Remember, this is a rough draft. If this happens to turn out, great. If it doesn't, then we try it again. Don't forget our elbow. We stop a little sooner and we touch that line right to there. Tricky part is getting them both look the same. I am always looking over here. I'm looking here and I'm looking here at the same time. So I've got to look at both as I'm drawing. That's why you keep your pencil going when you're sketching. You just keep it going. It's kind of like furry lines, fuzzy little hairy lines, to make sure that you're looking at both spots at the same time. Again, if I'm not sold on it, if I don't like it, like those arms look massive to me. Oh my gosh, they look so huge. At least this one on this side does. So maybe I need to come in a little further and shave this down. It just looks huge. Okay. Maybe I'm making an Arnold Schwarzenegger. A Rock, you know, The Rock. Maybe it's his arms. All right, I'm gonna go with this for now. I'm not sold on it for sure, but again, this is a rough draft. I'm not gonna do the hands yet because I'm gonna show you why. The bottom of the legs will have something to do with where the hands get placed. All right, so this is the width of our body. This is the width of our legs. Okay, so this is just in from the bottom of the torso. We have this just inside on both sides, and remember, this goes all the way down to the feet, but we're not going to draw that first. We're going to draw our square. Let's look at the inside and see, put like a little mark, like where do we think we want to put this line. That's probably a good gap there. Let's see about what shape. Nope, I need to come in a little bit on this side. Okay. This one looks bigger than this one. Maybe it's because of this line that I don't want. I don't know. It still looks kind of larger on the one side. Yeah. So I need to shave this down a smidge. That's what I'll do. I apologize, my eraser is absolutely filthy. It's been in a box with a bunch of charcoal and loose graphite. Okay, so I've got that. Remember, this cuts in but doesn't touch yet, and then we flatten it out at the bottom, and this starts our new line, so we should have a different size gap. Now we got to figure out how big of a square, because we don't want a rectangle, we want a square. That's pretty good. And we're going to do a measure test in a minute and see how far off I am, because I know that I'm off. I know that I made a mistake. We got to learn from our mistakes. And then we put on our little feet. Remember, these are just rectangles. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to test. This is a pencil measurement test. What I'm going to do on my paper is I'm going to put this to the bottom, right where the torso starts, pinch my fingers right here at the bottom of the torso, and then this should be roughly how tall the legs should be. So my legs are a little long. Now, there's two reasons for that. One, I don't have squares and I have rectangles, which I'm looking here. This one looks more like a rectangle slightly than this one. So I could shore up a little bit, but if we look, I'm about half a foot. I should be ending about right here. So I can either make the feet a little smaller and bring this up, which is what I think I'm going to do, because I think that's still a good square right there. Make my feet just a smidge smaller. I don't have big clod hoppers on, so I'm going to make my tennis shoes a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to erase that line. Attempt to erase that line. Okay, that looks better. The other reason why your legs would be so long is if this part was too wide. So if you end up making this skinny neck torso with this long dress type torso, the longer this bottom of your torso is, the longer your legs are going to be, because this is going to determine how wide your legs are. Okay, so it's a whole lot of proportion going on. You got to pay attention to all this. I'm going to go ahead and put in I'm going to squeeze this down just a smidge. And I'm going to put in my wrist. All right, now pay attention to this, because this is where we figure out how far down our hands go. Okay, so if we look back at the image, the hands go down to about right here. That's how big the hands are. You'd be surprised at how many kids end up making these little tiny baby hands here instead of putting on a good size wrist, because there is a good size wrist on there. Mine's probably even a little small. And they end up with these little tiny baby hands on this big body. So we have to be careful. We pay attention to how big these wrists are. I think this has to come over a little bit further too. There we go. That's better. And then remember, we want a big circle. And it's going to look weird and really big at first, but it really works out, trust me. So we want to come down to about that far. Okay, so we've got our rough outline on there. And then we're going to turn them into donuts, remember? Don't make them too skinny of donuts. Don't make them too fat of donuts. I want it to be just right. Remember, see how sketchy that is? Like, that's sketchy, okay? Don't worry about erasing right away if it doesn't look right. All right, now we got to put in our openings. Remember, these openings are kind of just like straight down. And then what we do is we put in this inner line right here. So straight down. Okay, and then we erase that excess out of the middle. Stuff we don't need, which of course I'm drawing on my paper. And if you notice, I haven't drawn my face yet. I don't care about my face yet. I mean, I'm getting there. I think, boy, I kind of think that my torso is too tall. I think what I should probably do, or what I should have done, or if I do this again, I would shorten my torso a little bit. That would bring this more into play. And then the head would be just a smidge bigger as well. I think the head's probably a little too small for this body. So this is what I'm talking about why we do rough drafts, right? So we want to make sure that we assess, be critical, and say, does this look like what it's supposed to look like? And if it doesn't, don't be afraid to change it. You know what? And I can make this change right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my shoulder down about this far. Okay. And then I'm going to drop my neck down, top of my torso down to about where my arm was. Drop that down. Put my neck out a little bit further because I'm going to make my head a smidge bigger. Okay. And now I can bring my head to about right where this was. And we don't want to go out past the shoulders, but oh my gosh, this looks so much better. I want to make sure that I still have a square here though. That looks more in proportion. And I didn't have to redraw the entire image, but the head was looking a little small compared to the body. That's why we do rough drafts, and then once you have it where you want it, this is when you can put it up to the window or a light table if you have one. I'm going to extend this out a little bit too. And then trace what it is that you want to trace, right? Whatever the size is that you want. I think that looks better. I'm more okay with the head size, even though I still think it could be a little taller. I think my neck's a little small. I think the neck should be just a smidge bigger. Maybe it's just each side thing. There we go. And for me, my beard is going to hide this anyways. Or maybe it won't hide it, but it would be out a little further because it's going to have that clip on for the beard itself, right? So then I practice my face, and remember the faces are down further on the face, on the head, and they're tight to each other. They're not real spread out. Just because you've got a big area doesn't mean that you draw it bigger and further out. So this is where, when we look at the beard, glasses would be painted on. So I love having glasses sometimes because it really helps with drawings. Okay. And then this would all get filled in, shaded in, right? Not shaded, but necessarily, but colored in, because we color ours. So remember the beard, whatever color the beard is, which if you're a 5th or 6th grader, you don't have a beard. But if you're drawing one of your dad, maybe, your whole neck gets that same color. That's that whole beard color, because that's that whole clip-on. Okay, this looks a little weird to me, but it's okay. This is a rough draft, and I've already done one anyways, and I'm going to put that one back up on the camera or on the screen for you. Remember, this is just a rough draft. We'll learn from our mistakes. And then from here we put on like whatever type of clothing that we normally have. So this is a long sleeve, and I've had kids, and I'll show you on mine. I'll put mine up right now. If you look at mine, it's got my sleeves are rolled up, so it's got more of my arm showing. If you're going to keep a long sleeve on, don't just cut the sleeve right here. You're going to have a long sleeve on, or a jacket. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to have to reduce the arm, which on Lego characters, I don't think they do very often, if at all. They always have this long sleeve on. So you're going to have to deal with that. But if you've got a jacket, and like these things are painted on. So these are things that are not dimensional. So if I have this happening, I don't know what this is, but these things are all painted on. Maybe it's got a pocket right here. Maybe I'll put pockets for jeans, paint those on, so those would become something. And you'll see from my other drawing, you saw the shirt that I put on. And this can either be your skin tone, or this can be another shirt underneath, so this would be a different color. So there's things that you can do to this to make it your own. If you've got rips in the jeans, maybe it'll flare out, kind of like, I don't know, it looks kind of more like an explosion, but ripped jeans, and this would be your skin color down there. And in my class, I've got Crayola made a skin tone box of color pencils, and there would be different versions of skin tones that you could choose. But the typical Lego, like this guy isn't even typical Lego. This has got kind of a peach look to it. But the typical Lego is just yellow, right? So you can choose to make yourself all yellow, like a typical Lego, or you can give yourself a flesh tone, right? So that's about it. So have fun. Oh, and then your shoes could be a different color too. If you have different color, if you want. So if you look at this, like brown, this is brown all the way down. But if you wanted to put different color shoes on than your pants, then you could do that as well. So that is an option. All right, so that's turning yourself into a Lego. I'm going to put the image, my finished image up of what I did. This is mine. There were a few mistakes on mine. On this one, the legs should have been a little bit longer and a little wider. I think I didn't taper my trapezoid out far enough when I made mine. I think I like the head size on that one. I think the eyes were up too high on my glasses, or for my eyes. overall, it was okay, but definitely, I want to say that was my first time ever doing it, and I worked harder on getting. If you look at my hands on the one I just drew today, and if you look at the hands on the one I drew then, they're a little off. They're a little different. I wasn't paying as close attention to the details when I first did this. This was what I did 3 years ago. It was my first time. So I think I've gotten better in some aspects, but it takes practice. It takes time to get something right. Okay. All right. Have fun. Enjoy. I hope yours turn out fantastically. Thanks for watching.